The afternoon sun bathed the glass facade of Elite Motors, a dealership that exuded luxury and exclusivity. Gleaming cars, like jewels on wheels, lined up in the showroom, each boasting a price that would make most people gasp. Inside, the air conditioning hummed softly, muffling the city's hustle and bustle outside. The glass door slid open silently, allowing a man to enter. He was tall, with broad shoulders that filled out his black cotton t-shirt, and dark jeans that didn't hide the muscles in his legs. His hair, carefully trimmed, revealed his dark, shining skin, and his eyes, a deep brown, observed everything around him with a calm that contrasted with the tension that was beginning to form inside the store. He was Kwame, and on that day, he was about to change the fate of Elite Motors. Kwame didn't dress with the ostentation that the dealership seemed to demand. There were no designer suits, polished leather shoes, or expensive watches on his wrist. He was a man who valued comfort and practicality, and his clothes reflected that. However, behind that casual appearance, there was an astute businessman, a visionary who had built an empire from nothing. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Eleanor, with an impeccable haircut and a cream-colored suit, watched Kwame with a look that ranged from skepticism to disdain. She had seen many men enter the store, but few of them looked like him. In her mind, he didn't fit the profile of an Elite Motors customer. He seemed, in her words, out of place. Eleanor approached Kwame with a forced smile, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, with an intonation that made it clear she didn't expect him to be a potential customer. Kwame smiled back, a genuine smile that wasn't shaken by her coldness. "Yes, I'd like to take a look at the cars," he replied, his voice deep and smooth. "Well, maybe you should look elsewhere," Eleanor said, with a tone that bordered on rudeness. "Our cars are very expensive, and I don't think that—" She paused, as if holding back from saying something even more offensive. Kwame raised an eyebrow, but didn't let his expression show what he really felt. "I understand. But I'd like to see the latest model," he insisted, pointing to a red sports car that gleamed under the showroom lights. Eleanor sighed, as if she were doing a great favor. "All right, but don't waste your time. You can't afford a car like that," she said, with a tone of superiority that irritated Kwame inside. He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. He knew that prejudice was a reality, but he never expected to encounter it so blatantly in a place like that. "I'd like to see the car, please," he repeated, with the same calmness as before. Eleanor rolled her eyes, but finally gave in. "All right, but don't touch anything," she said, as she guided Kwame to the sports car. As they walked, Kwame observed the showroom. He saw the salespeople, all in suits and ties, looking at him with the same distrustful look as Eleanor. He saw the customers, all white and wealthy, exchanging looks of curiosity and judgment. He felt the tension in the air, the atmosphere of exclusivity that seemed to repel anyone who didn't fit their mold. He knew that this was the moment of truth. He could simply leave, ignore the prejudice, and look for another place. But something inside him refused to give in. He had worked too hard to get where he was, and he wouldn't let anyone's prejudice stop him from achieving his dreams. And so, Kwame decided that he wouldn't leave. He would show everyone in that dealership what it really meant to be a successful man, regardless of the color of his skin. While Eleanor talked about the technical details of the sports car, Kwame allowed himself a brief moment of introspection. His mind traveled back in time, to the dusty streets of his childhood, where the luxury of Elite Motors seemed like a distant dream. He remembered the small house where he grew up, the hard work of his mother, who cleaned houses to support the family, and the look of pride on her face when he got his first scholarship. Kwame wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He grew up in a neighborhood where opportunities were scarce and prejudice was a constant. He saw friends give up on their dreams, succumbing to the hopelessness that hung in the air. But for Kwame, giving up was never an option. He had a fire inside him, an unwavering determination that drove him to keep going, no matter how difficult the path. He remembered the sleepless nights, studying under the dim light of a lamp, while the rest of the neighborhood slept. He remembered the difficulties of getting a job, the looks of distrust he received because of the color of his skin. But he also remembered the victories, the small successes that encouraged him to keep fighting. Kwame always had a sharp mind for business. From an early age, he sold lemonade on the street, and with the money he earned, he bought more ingredients to make more lemonade. He learned the importance of hard work, persistence, and creativity. He also learned that prejudice was an obstacle that he would have to overcome, no matter what. After graduating from high school with honors, Kwame got a scholarship to a prestigious university. There, he studied business administration, but never forgot his roots. He got involved in social projects, helping young people from disadvantaged communities to access education and job opportunities. He wanted to show that it was possible to win, no matter where you came from. After graduating, Kwame started his own technology company. He faced many challenges, but never gave up. He worked tirelessly, building his company from scratch, until it became a success. He became a millionaire, but never let himself be carried away by money. He knew that true success was not having a lot of money, but having the ability to make a difference in the world. And now Kwame was there, at Elite Motors, being judged by his appearance, by the same prejudice he had fought his whole life to overcome. He could have been angry, yelled, demanded respect. But he knew that this wasn't the best way to deal with the situation. He had a plan, and he would execute it with calm and precision. As Eleanor finished her presentation about the car, Kwame turned his attention to her. He watched her carefully, noting the look of superiority in her eyes, the way she treated him as if he were inferior. He knew that she was just a reflection of a bigger problem, a problem that he was determined to fight. "Interesting," said Kwame, with a tone of voice that didn't reveal his thoughts. "But I'd like to see the owner's office." Eleanor froze, surprised by the request. "The owner's office? Why would you want to see the owner's office?" she asked, with a tone of suspicion. "Because I'd like to make an offer," Kwame replied, with an enigmatic smile. Eleanor laughed, a forced laugh that echoed through the showroom. "An offer? You? Don't make me laugh. You can't afford to buy anything here." "Maybe you're wrong," said Kwame, with a look that challenged the manager. "I'd like to speak to the owner. Now." The tension in the showroom increased. The salespeople stopped talking, the customers stopped looking at the cars, everyone watched the scene with curiosity. Kwame had broken protocol, had challenged the hierarchy of the dealership, and everyone was eager to see what would happen next. Eleanor, her face flushed with indignation, crossed her arms over her chest. "You're being ridiculous. The owner doesn't have time to talk to people like you," she said, her voice full of contempt. "If you're not going to buy anything, I suggest you leave and don't waste my time." Kwame remained calm, but his patience was beginning to wear thin. He wasn't used to being treated with such disrespect, and Eleanor's attitude irritated him deeply. However, he knew that losing his temper wouldn't get him anywhere. He needed to stay in control, at least for now. "I insist," said Kwame, with a firm voice that echoed through the showroom. "I have an offer to make, and I'm only going to make that offer to the owner. If you don't take me to him, I'll look for him on my own." Eleanor hesitated, realizing that Kwame wasn't bluffing. She didn't want to cause more trouble, but she also didn't want to give in to his request. She knew that the owner, an elderly man named Arthur, was very demanding and didn't like to have his time wasted. But at the same time, she couldn't simply ignore a customer who insisted on speaking to him. "All right," said Eleanor, with a sigh of defeat. "But don't expect him to be happy about it." She picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Arthur, there's a customer here who insists on talking to you. He says he has an offer to make." There was a pause on the line, and then Arthur's deep voice answered. "An offer? What kind of offer? Does he even have the money to buy a car?" Eleanor looked at Kwame, with a look of disdain. "I don't know, Arthur. He doesn't look like he has much money." "Then send him away," said Arthur, with an impatient tone. "I don't have time to waste on looky-loose." "He insists on speaking to you," said Eleanor, with a tone of voice that indicated she was already tired of the situation. Arthur sighed. "All right, send him to my office. But make it quick. I have more important things to do." Eleanor hung up the phone and looked at Kwame with a disapproving look. "The owner will see you, but don't waste his time. And don't forget your place," she said, with a tone of voice that made her prejudice clear. Kwame didn't answer. He just followed Eleanor to Arthur's office, which was upstairs. As they walked up the stairs, he observed the details of the dealership. He saw the pictures of old cars on the walls, the sales trophies on the shelves, the leather furniture that exuded luxury and power. He realized that this place was more than just a car store. It was a symbol of status, wealth, and power. And he was about to challenge all of that. Eleanor opened the office door and gestured for Kwame to enter. Arthur was sitting behind a large wooden desk, with a look of impatience on his face. He was an elderly man, with white hair and a wrinkled face, but his eyes still shone with the same cunning as a lion. He was the old lion, the king of that jungle of luxury cars. "What do you want?" asked Arthur, with a tone of voice that didn't allow for any beating around the bush. "I don't have all day." Kwame entered the office and closed the door behind him. He looked at Arthur with a calm and determined look. "I want to buy your dealership," he said, with a voice that echoed through the office. Arthur looked at Kwame, with a look of disbelief. "You want what? Are you kidding me?" "No, I'm not kidding," Kwame replied, with an enigmatic smile. "I'm serious. I want to buy Elite Motors." Arthur laughed, a loud and mocking laugh. "You? Buy my dealership? You don't have the money to buy a car here, let alone the whole dealership." "Maybe you're wrong," said Kwame, with a tone of voice that challenged Arthur. "I have more money than you imagine." Arthur raised an eyebrow, curious about Kwame's audacity. "Prove it," he said, with a look that indicated he was ready to expose Kwame's bluff. Kwame smiled. He had been waiting for that moment. He took out his cell phone and opened a banking app. He showed the screen to Arthur, who widened his eyes when he saw Kwame's account balance. It was an astronomical amount, a value that would make anyone's jaw drop. Arthur looked at Kwame, with a look of surprise and respect. He had underestimated that man, had judged him by his appearance, had made the same mistake as many others. He had let himself be carried away by prejudice, and now he was about to pay the price for it. "Who are you?" asked Arthur, with a tone of voice that indicated he was beginning to take Kwame seriously. "My name is Kwame," said Kwame, with a smile that revealed his determination. "And I'm your new owner." The silence in the office was palpable, broken only by Arthur's heavy breathing. He stared at Kwame's cell phone screen, incredulous at what he saw. That young man whom he had judged so quickly was a tycoon, a successful businessman, with a financial power that he would never have imagined. Arthur, the old lion, the king of Elite Motors, felt his empire tremble before that young lion who had just entered his territory. He had spent his life building that dealership, and now, in the blink of an eye, he could lose it to a stranger. How did you get so much money?" asked Arthur, his voice choked with surprise. Kwame smiled, a smile that was not of arrogance, but of satisfaction. "I worked hard, Arthur. I built my company from scratch, with a lot of effort and dedication. I never gave up on my dreams, and now I'm here," he said, with a tone of voice that conveyed confidence. Arthur nodded, realizing that he had made a mistake in judging Kwame by his appearance. He had let himself be carried away by prejudice, and now he was about to pay the price for it. He knew that he couldn't compete with Kwame's financial power, and that the only option left to him was to negotiate. "What do you want?" asked Arthur, with a tone of voice that indicated he was ready to negotiate. "How much are you willing to pay for my dealership?" Kwame looked at Arthur, with a look that conveyed respect. He knew that Arthur had built an empire, and that he deserved to be treated with dignity. "I don't want to take anything from you, Arthur. I want you to continue working here, as a consultant. I need your experience and your knowledge," said Kwame, with a tone of voice that conveyed sincerity. Arthur was surprised by Kwame's offer. He expected him to kick him out of the dealership, to humiliate him. But Kwame was offering him a place, an important role in the future of Elite Motors. "Why would you do that?" asked Arthur, with a tone of voice that indicated he was curious. "Because I believe that everyone deserves a second chance," replied Kwame, with a smile that revealed his generosity. "And because I know you can help me transform Elite Motors into a better place." Arthur was moved by Kwame's words. He had spent his life judging people by their appearance, and now, he was being treated with respect by a man he had despised. He realized that he had a lot to learn from Kwame, and that he needed to change his way of thinking. "All right," said Arthur, with a tone of voice that indicated he had accepted Kwame's offer. "I accept your proposal. I'll work with you, and I'll help you transform Elite Motors into a better place." Kwame smiled, satisfied with Arthur's response. He knew he had made the right choice, and that he had found an ally to help him on his journey. "Now let's go downstairs and tell the news to your employees," said Kwame, with a tone of voice that indicated he was ready to start working. Arthur nodded, and the two men left the office and went downstairs. The dealership employees were all gathered in the showroom, with looks of curiosity and apprehension. They knew that something important had happened, and they were eager to know what it was. Eleanor was at the front of the group, with a look of distrust on her face. She hadn't liked Kwame from the start, and now she was even more irritated with the situation. "What's going on?" asked Eleanor, with a tone of voice that indicated she was impatient. Arthur looked at Eleanor, with a look that conveyed regret. "I have news for you," he said, with a tone of voice that indicated he was about to make an important announcement. "As of today, Elite Motors has a new owner." The dealership employees fell silent, with looks of surprise and apprehension. They didn't know what to expect, and they were afraid of what the future held for them. "His name is Kwame," said Arthur, pointing to Kwame. "And he is the new owner of Elite Motors." The dealership employees looked at Kwame, with looks of disbelief and curiosity. They couldn't believe that this young man, who had been treated with so much contempt, was the new owner of the dealership. Eleanor was shocked by the news. She looked at Kwame, with a look of anger and humiliation. She had judged him by his appearance, and now she was about to pay the price for it. "I want you to know that I'm not going to change anything," said Kwame, with a tone of voice that conveyed confidence. "I want you to continue working here, and I want you to help me transform Elite Motors into a better place. I believe in the potential of each of you, and I want you to believe in me." The dealership employees looked at Kwame, with looks of admiration and respect. They realized that he was a different man, an inspiring leader who could help them achieve their dreams. The news of the change of ownership of Elite Motors spread quickly through the city. Many were surprised, others skeptical, but all curious about what would happen next. Kwame was not a well-known name in the world of luxury cars, but his reputation as a successful businessman and philanthropist preceded him. Kwame's first day as owner was marked by a mixture of anxiety and enthusiasm. He spent the morning talking to each of the employees, listening to their concerns, their dreams, and their suggestions. He made sure to show that he valued each of them, regardless of their position in the company. Eleanor, on the other hand, remained distant and resentful. She couldn't accept that a man she had judged so harshly was now her boss. Kwame noticed her resistance, but decided not to confront her immediately. He knew that change would take time, and that he needed to be patient and persistent. The first major change that Kwame implemented was the revision of the customer service policy. He instructed the salespeople to treat all customers with respect and equality, regardless of their appearance, their ethnicity, or their social status. He wanted Elite Motors to be a place where everyone felt welcome, a place where prejudice had no place. He also invested in training for the employees, offering personal and professional development courses. He wanted them to feel valued and empowered, and that they had the opportunity to grow within the company. Arthur, in turn, became a valuable ally for Kwame. His experience and knowledge of the luxury car market were essential for strategic decision-making. He also began to change his way of thinking, learning from Kwame the importance of equality and respect. But Kwame's journey wasn't easy. He faced resistance from some employees who couldn't adapt to the changes, and the distrust of some customers who couldn't accept the idea of a black owner in a luxury dealership. He also had to deal with the pressure from the media, who watched him closely, waiting for any slip-up. He was the target of criticism and racist attacks, but he didn't let himself be shaken. He knew he was on the right path, and that he needed to keep fighting for his ideals. Kwame also made a point of investing in the community, creating support programs for underprivileged youth and promoting social responsibility actions. He wanted to show that Elite Motors was more than just a company, that it was part of the community, and that it had a commitment to make a difference in the world. Over time, Elite Motors began to transform. The atmosphere in the dealership became more welcoming and inclusive, and employees began to work as a team, with a common goal. Customers began to notice the difference, and Elite Motors' reputation began to improve. Eleanor, in turn, began to change her way of thinking. She realized that Kwame was not the villain she had imagined, and that he was truly committed to making a difference. She began to admire his leadership and his generosity, and she decided to give him a chance. One day, Eleanor sought out Kwame in his office. She was nervous, but determined to make peace with him. "Kwame, I need to apologize to you," said Eleanor, her voice choked with emotion. "I was unfair to you, and I really regret what I did. You're an incredible leader, and I greatly admire your courage and your determination." Kwame looked at Eleanor, with a look that conveyed understanding. "I know you didn't do it on purpose, Eleanor. We all make mistakes, and the important thing is to learn from them," he said, with a tone of voice that revealed his generosity. "I forgive you, and I hope you can help me build a better future for Elite Motors." Eleanor smiled, relieved by Kwame's words. She knew that she had found a friend, and that she could count on him for whatever she needed. From that day on, Eleanor became one of Kwame's greatest allies. She worked tirelessly to help him transform Elite Motors into a better place, and she became an example of change and overcoming. The transformation of Elite Motors did not go unnoticed. The success of the dealership, now a beacon of inclusion and respect, attracted the attention of other companies in the sector. Some admired the change, others saw it as a threat. Among the latter was Apex Motors, a longtime competitor, known for its questionable practices and its culture of exclusion. The CEO of Apex Motors, a man named Victor, did not look favorably on Kwame's success. He believed that the luxury car market was an exclusive territory for people like him, and not for an outsider like Kwame. He decided it was time to end the rise of Elite Motors, using all means necessary. Victor began a smear campaign against Kwame, spreading rumors and false news about his personal and professional life. He tried to undermine Kwame's reputation, hoping that customers and employees of Elite Motors would lose confidence in him. But Kwame was not shaken by Victor's dirty tactics. He knew that the truth was on his side, and that he didn't need to stoop to the level of his competitor. He decided that the best way to fight hatred was with love, and that the best way to overcome injustice was with justice. He called a meeting with all the employees of Elite Motors, and shared the situation with them. He asked them not to be carried away by Victor's lies, and to continue working together to build a better future. The employees of Elite Motors rallied around Kwame, demonstrating their support and loyalty. They knew that he was a fair and honest leader, and that they would not abandon him in a moment of difficulty. Kwame also decided to use the media to his advantage. He gave interviews to various media outlets, sharing his story and his ideals. He spoke about the importance of equality, respect, and inclusion, and he showed that it was possible to build a better world, even in a sector as competitive as luxury cars. His words inspired many people, and he became an example for those who fought against prejudice and injustice. He showed that it was possible to win, no matter how difficult the path was. Meanwhile, Victor continued with his smear campaign, but his efforts proved futile. Elite Motors customers remained loyal to the brand, and employees continued to work with dedication and enthusiasm. Victor, desperate with the situation, decided to use a more aggressive tactic. He tried to buy Elite Motors, offering an exorbitant amount to Kwame. He believed that money was the solution to all problems, and that Kwame would not be able to resist such a tempting offer. But Kwame was not interested in Victor's money. He knew that Elite Motors was more than a business, that it was a symbol of hope and transformation. He refused Victor's offer, making it clear that he was not for sale. Victor was furious with Kwame's refusal. He decided it was time to use force, and he planned an attack against Elite Motors. He hired a group of vandals to break into the dealership, destroy the cars, and intimidate the employees. But Kwame was prepared for Victor's attack. He had hired security guards to protect the dealership, and he had installed surveillance cameras to monitor everything that happened. When the vandals broke into Elite Motors, they were surprised by the resistance of the security guards. They were quickly detained, and the police were called to arrest them. Victor was arrested for his crimes, and his reputation was destroyed. Apex Motors lost many customers and employees, and its image was tarnished forever. Elite Motors, on the other hand, emerged strengthened from the crisis. Kwame's courage and leadership inspired many people, and the dealership became an example of success and overcoming. Kwame continued to lead Elite Motors, transforming it into an even more inclusive and responsible company. He created support programs for underprivileged youth, promoted social responsibility actions, and became a leader admired by all. He became a symbol of hope and transformation, showing that it was possible to build a better world, even in a sector as competitive as luxury cars. And his legacy, the story of a man who defied prejudice and built an empire based on equality and respect, would continue to inspire future generations. Years later, Elite Motors was recognized as one of the best dealerships in the country, not only for the quality of its cars, but also for its culture of inclusion and respect. Kwame, now a renowned and admired leader, continued to inspire people around the world, showing that it was possible to win, no matter the color of your skin or the difficulty of the path. And so, the story of the man who was judged by his appearance, but who proved to be much more than the eyes could see, became a tale of hope, justice, and redemption. A story that would echo for generations, reminding everyone that prejudice has no place in a world that seeks equality and respect.